Hi everyone. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make your own styrofoam cake dummies. Now sometimes you need a uniquely shaped dummy if you're doing a competition piece or you're just needing to replace some of your cake with styrofoam to reduce the weight, or perhaps for a demonstration. There's a lot of different reasons you might need this. So the first tool that I'm going to show you, this is called a rasp. It's sort of like a zester. Think of it as a zester for styrofoam. It cuts in one direction and it really rips right through the styrofoam. It's a great tool. This is a small hand saw, and I also have a sanding block. Now, the other thing I have is an industrial vacuum cleaner, like a shop vac. This is a pretty important tool because styrofoam is really messy. The styrofoam I use is a closed cell styrofoam. That's the smooth stuff. Now there's also open cell styrofoam. That's the rougher stuff. It's usually green. Sometimes it's white, but that doesn't work very well with fondant. It's lumpy, it's rough. I like a closed cell styrofoam. The fondant lays over it much more smoothly. So pretty quickly you can see why it's important to have that vacuum cleaner. That styrofoam dust gets just everywhere. A very smart thing that you can do at this point that I haven't done is to draw your design onto the styrofoam, and that helps you to figure out where you want to make your cuts. But I'm just going to take my knife and tear right into it. To paraphrase Michelangelo, I'm just going to cut away everything that isn't a heart. As you're cutting the styrofoam, the sawdust that you're creating becomes charged with static. And you'll find whatever doesn't make it into your vacuum cleaner will stick everywhere. The legs of your work table, the garbage can, as you're cleaning up everywhere. This stuff is just amazing in its tenacity. One way to deal with that is to get some of the anti-cling spray that they make for clothing. You know, the stuff to remove static cling that you use in the winter. It works great. If you've got it all over a work surface, just spray it down with that stuff and it loosens it right up and makes it much easier to clean. So I'm just chopping away the chunkier bits, the sharper edges, and now I have a fairly good rough shape. So the next step to refining it is to use my rasp, which again, it cuts in one direction, and that is away from me. And look at that. Look how beautifully that's just slicing right through that styrofoam, and how quickly it's refining that shape. As I'm working, I try to keep from letting that styrofoam sawdust, that's not easy to say, styrofoam sawdust, I try and keep that stuff from building up on my work surface because it also blows around really easily, and just moving my piece around can cause it to fly around the room. Working with the rasp gets me fairly close to my final shape, but it's not really refined enough. It still leaves me with enough lumps and bumps on the styrofoam that would show up underneath the fondant, things I would have to compensate for with some kind of filler. So instead of leaving it with this texture and this surface, I'm going to refine it even further by using the sanding block. Now the sanding block has two different surfaces. One is rougher and one is finer. And you're probably going to end up using both of those surfaces. So as I'm working with this, notice how the surface of the piece is becoming smoother. And now I want you to think about the finish of this piece. Think about how the fondant is going to lay over your dummy and what kind of surface you want. And you're going to want to refine your styrofoam to the level that your fondant will lay beautifully on top of it. So keep an eye on the sawdust that's coming off of this, or the dust that's coming off of the styrofoam. It's smaller than it was with the rasp because I'm taking smaller bits off. And now I'm going to use the finer side of the sanding block, and you can see that the dust that comes off of the piece now is even finer. Usually using the finer side of the sanding block is fine for me. You can of course get different levels. These sanding blocks come in different grits. So experiment, they're not very expensive. Buy a few, you might be able to sand it down until it's perfectly smooth. And that's worth your time because it's very quick. It's quicker than trying to fill lumpy styrofoam. And there you have it. A beautiful little heart-shaped dummy. Really easy to make. And if you're careful, really easy to clean up too. And there is my little heart dummy. And I heart you all for watching. If you want to see more, go to my website, KarenPortaleo.com.